Ukraine will be at our key topic, our key issue of the OSCE chairmanship exercise by Germany, the Russian attack against Ukraine, the illegal annexation of Crimea, and all what happened in eastern Ukraine, and all our efforts we have been given so far. It means the conflict is far from being solved. It will not go away. And the basis of the European security order was put into question.
There is no control over the Russian-Ukrainian border by the Ukrainian side or by the international side. There is no elections in the territories under the Russian control, under the separatist control. So, and what we know, it's also the sanctions against Russia are really in a way connected to the fulfillment of the Minsk process. So, is Ukraine fulfilling the Minsk process? Is Russia keeping to it? What is your assessment? What is the assessment of Berlin? What concern as well?
I think a lot of things have been reached so far. The Minsk process might be better as its reputation. I know it's difficult, it's cumbersome, but it's a necessary process. It's the only game in town. So far, I think we have reached three things. First of all, we have reached a certain military de-escalation, in spite of all the breaches and the violations of the ceasefire that are deplorable, of course. And we still are very much adamant and keen on calling on the sides to maintain strictly, to abide strictly by the ceasefire obligations. But all in all, since beginning of September, we have a phase of military de-escalation. So a new logic is prevailing, first. Second, we have a rather functional political process in spite of difficulties. Working groups under the helm of the Trilateral Contact Group meeting each and every week in Minsk, and Russia being member of the Trilateral Contact Group, which means that Russia cannot pretend being no party of the conflict. So I think this is key, involve Russia and maintain a structured dialogue on the process. And third, we have a lot of projects, small projects in the field of economy in particular, helping Ukraine to reach out to the Donbas, to win hearts and minds of people, and to develop a constructive, a positive agenda, also to counter this Russian propaganda. Certainly the process will take more time. Certainly a lot of things haven't been achieved yet. Heads of state and government in Paris on 2nd of October decided on a certain sequence of things to happen. So only to prepare elections in the special territories of the Donbas will take 3 months, and certainly to come to regulations and to modalities for local elections in this region will take also some time. So it is logical that the process will be extended and will take some more time, including in the coming year.
So the Minsk process is moving to the 2016?
So far it is too early to say, but in conformity with all our expectations, it will take some more time. And if you just take the decisions of heads of state and government of October, it is logical that people need more time to implement.
But if we speak about the discussion about the modality of the election in the controls under the separatists, it's already 2 months, bit more than 2 months after the 2nd of October. Since the 2nd of October, it's mid of December already. So we see that we don't see this model. So what is this model? What is discussed? Can you share, and or are we behind? How far we are behind the schedule?
I would say that in order to conduct free and fair elections on the principles, based on the principles laid out in Minsk, we need some more time. Minsk says very clearly that elections in the certain territories of the Donbas have to be based on Ukrainian law. They have to be based on OSCE standards, and they have to be observed by the international community, meaning by the Office of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights of the OSCE. In order to reach that, you need minimum security conditions prevailing in this region. And when you look to the current situation, the OSCE special monitoring mission reports just this week, and they haven't been very positive. So I think we need a logic of ceasefire each and every side needs to fully abide by the weapons withdrawal. We need to start demining. Both sides have this responsibility, so the security conditions have to be created. And this is why this process takes so much time, because it is so difficult to reach that, firstly. And secondly, of course, it is a tough challenge to achieve an agreement on modalities. So now we expect that sides achieve agreement on key modalities so we can embark on preparations for these elections.
It's up to us really to ask the government, ask the people from the authorities. So what would be these 1, 2, 3 things to ask from? What would be these indicators that, you know, for the international community, that Ukrainian side is going with this process?
I think, first of all, on the withdrawal agreements, on so-called light and on heavy weapons, fulfill all the obligations when it comes to withdrawal and to notification. Just read the SMM reports. Ukraine could do better in some parts of the implementation when it comes to informing the special monitoring mission on the locations of the withdrawal sites. This is very, very important. I think it is key that all the checkpoints along the contact line are made less cumbersome for people. You know, these files of hundreds, these queues of hundreds of people, elderly, pensions, etc., just people, neighbors or relatives visiting each other, this is cumbersome, this is difficult, you need to facilitate this. I think for Ukraine it would be very good to reach out, winning hearts and minds of the people of the Donbas, just liberalize the crossing of the line, while maintaining security, of course. But I think this is key, and we will be helpful for Ukraine in doing that.
And there are a lot of talks about lifting the sanctions against Russia in January. It's not up to us to assess that, but what are the chances? We know there is a pressure from the business. We hear a lot also from the German business that people are not really satisfied. People want to be back to the going it as usual, to do the business as usual. So what are the chances? How serious?
On a personal note, I expect that the sanctions might be extended by another certain period of time. It is now in the European institutions, it is under discussion, and the current sanction regime, as you know, is running out end of January, so it would be another period of time after the end of January. But once again, the European Council back in March took the decision that the sanctions are synchronized with the implementation of Minsk. Germany's position remains unchanged. We fully condemn the illegal annexation of Crimea by Russia. This is Ukrainian territory and must be under Ukrainian control once again. And we are very much in sympathy with the fate of the Ukrainians living there, of the oppression and violations of human rights. In particular, we are sympathetic with the fate of the Crimean Tatars, who are suffering a lot. We call and continue to urge Russia to set people such as Mr. Sentsov and Mr. Kolchenko, to set them free, because these processes are fake and are unacceptable. Having said this, on the other side, we think that Ukraine should assume its humanitarian obligations vis-à-vis the Ukrainians, the people living on the peninsula. They should re-establish the electricity lines in order to fulfill your contractual obligations by the end of this year at least.
How you assess the process of the reforms? We have a lot of complaints here, and there is a buzz in society that it's too slow. And what are the indicators of the things for you that things are moving? What would be these indicators?
First steps have been taken, but reforms are not sustainable yet. Key steps have been taken in the fields of energy, in the fields of financial reform, and in the fields of the reform of the security sector. Huge deficits remain. We need intensification of the fight against corruption. We need a functional anti-corruption bureau. We need a functional office of prosecution against corruption, and we need a functional public prosecution office. And all these fields, the work needs to be intensified. Second, in public, when it comes to public finance or tax reform, it must be in line with the rules of the game defined by the IMF in order to preserve the financial sustainability of the country. Once again, fight against corruption and the reform of the judiciary is key. We need independent lawyers, we need independent judges in order to preserve and maintain the rule of law. And this is also not a key condition and claim of the people of Ukraine. That's also very important for foreign investments to come in. In this year only, Germany earmarked 700 million of euros for Ukraine, out of which 200 million are due to a bilateral program of technical cooperation, and 500 million is a credit guarantee framework, which is used, the biggest chunk of it is used for reconstruction projects. By the way, for example, electricity substations and their renovation, which will stabilize the whole of the electricity grid of Ukraine. So these are really key contributions, and we remain committed. We'll continue to closely cooperate with the country.
And you mentioned the visa liberalization process and the work regarding the European, this is a separate process also, the visa liberalization and the EU agreements. Regarding the first, what are the news? What is the position? How is...
I cannot disclose any news. The process, sorry, as you know, is in the hands of the European Commission. They will issue a progress report on visa liberalization, the final report on 15th of December, if I'm not mistaken. Today we had the Association Council in Brussels, and the Commissioner for Enlargement, Johannes Regenbrecht, I just quote him, he said the progress report will be positive on Ukraine. What he meant with that, I'm not very sure, but I think Ukraine will be assessed and judged by its merits, its progress on the fight against corruption, on working with the security sector, and so on and so forth. And we very much hope that we'll have progress and green light for visa liberalization